Questions. My friends, how many of you have ever said yes when every cell in your body was screaming no? You didn't want to go out, but you said yes. You didn't want to lend that money. Questions. But you said yes. You didn't want to tolerate disrespect, but you smiled anyway. And then you went home, exhausted, angry, and empty inside. Questions. Let me tell you something today. Being nice is beautiful, but being too soft can destroy you. You are not here to please everyone. You are here to live with purpose and peace. Questions. Kindness means you respect others. Weakness means you disrespect yourself. There's a thin line. And when you keep everyone else happy at your own expense, you're crossing it. Questions. Remember, you can be soft-spoken but firm in decision. The world doesn't need your constant yes. It needs your clarity. People think boundaries are rude. No. Questions. Boundaries are self-respect in action. If you keep your door always open, don't be surprised when people walk all over your carpet with muddy shoes. Close the door sometimes. Questions. Lock it when you need peace. A person who respects themselves teaches others how to treat them. Let me tell you a secret. The need to please everyone comes from fear. Fear of rejection. Questions. Fear of conflict, fear of being unloved. But my friend, even Lord Krishna couldn't please everyone in the Mahabharata. If Krishna was criticized despite doing what was right. Questions. Who are we to expect applause from everyone? Stop living for approval, start living for alignment. A no said with clarity is better than a yes said with guilt. Questions. You don't have to shout or fight, you just have to be honest. Say, I'd love to help, but I can't commit right now. Say, that doesn't align with my priorities. Say, no. Questions. Thank you. Short, clear, peaceful. Sometimes silence isn't golden. It's cowardly. Questions. Don't let wrong behavior slide because you don't want drama. Speaking the truth respectfully is an act of love for yourself and for others. If you never speak up, questions, you're silently agreeing to be mistreated. You can inspire people, guide people, even pray for people, but you cannot carry people who refuse to walk. If you spend your whole life fixing others' questions, you'll end up broken. Be compassionate, yes, but also be wise enough to let go. Even a doctor can't treat a patient who refuses medicine. Empathy means you feel for people. Questions. Exploitation means they use your feelings for their benefit. Some people don't want your kindness, they want your compliance. Be aware. The moment your kindness becomes their tool of control. Questions. Step back with love. A soft heart makes you human. A soft head makes you a victim. Use both, heart and head. Be emotional but also logical. Be generous but not gullible. Questions. The balance of love and wisdom is the sign of true maturity. You can replace money, jobs, even people, but you can't replace peace of mind. Protect it fiercely. Questions. If someone constantly drains your energy, it's okay to love them from a distance. Peace is not selfish. It's spiritual hygiene. Questions. Real strength isn't in shouting or fighting. It's in standing firm with grace. You can be calm and still be powerful. You can smile and still say, no bo. You can forgive and still walk away. Questions. So today, stop being soft to everyone and start being strong for yourself. Once a monk was walking through a forest when he saw a scorpion drowning. He lifted it out and it stung him. Questions. He dropped it again but then lifted it once more and it stung again. A man watching said, why do you keep saving it? It keeps hurting you. The monk smiled and said, questions. The scorpion's nature is to sting. My nature is to save. But next time I'll use a leaf. A moral, don't change your nature to please others. Just change your method to protect yourself. Questions. So, my friends, stay kind, but stop being soft. Stay loving, but stop being blind. Stay gentle, but guard your peace. Because when you stop being soft to everyone, questions, you finally become strong enough to love yourself. Questions. My friends, there is a very fine line between being kind and being weak. Most of us don't even realize when we've crossed that line. We grow up hearing, be nice, be humble, be forgiving, questions, be polite, and that's wonderful advice until we take it to mean let everyone walk all over you. Let me tell you something very simple yet very powerful. Questions. Kindness is strength under control, not weakness on display. You can be kind without being a pushover. You can be gentle without being gullible. You can be respectful without being submissive. Questions. But sadly, most of us confuse the two. We think being kind means never saying no, never speaking up, never disagreeing. We think being kind means giving even when we're empty inside. Questions. We think being kind means tolerating nonsense because we're good people. But let me ask you, is it truly good to hurt yourself just to keep others comfortable? Imagine this. Questions. You're at work and your colleague comes to you every week asking for help finishing their project. You've got your own workload, but you don't want to seem rude, so you say yes. You stay late. Questions. Miss dinner with your family and end up exhausted. And what happens next week? They come again. Because you've trained them to believe you'll always say yes. You call it kindness. Questions. They see it as convenience. True kindness is when you help someone without losing yourself in the process. Because the moment you start sacrificing your peace, your time, questions, your self-respect, that's no longer kindness, that's self-neglect. Let's take another example. Think about that one friend who only calls when they need something. Money, favors, questions, emotional support. You're always there. You listen to their problems for hours. You cancel your plans to be with them. But when you need them, they're busy. You tell yourself, it's okay. Questions. I'm being a good friend. But are you really being a good friend? Or are you being afraid? Afraid to lose them, afraid to appear selfish, afraid to be alone. You see, questions. Kindness that comes from love empowers both people. But kindness that comes from fear drains one and spoils the other. There's a story I once heard. A farmer saw a snake trapped under a rock. Questions. He wanted to help, so he lifted the rock and freed the snake. And the snake bit him. Shocked, the farmer said, "Why did you bite me? I was trying to help you." The snake replied, "Questions. Biting is my nature. You chose to forget that. My friends, never forget. Kindness should never make you blind. We think being soft will make people like us more, respect us more." Questions. But it often does the opposite. When you don't respect your own boundaries, others stop respecting them too. When you keep saying yes to everything, people stop valuing your yes. In relationships, questions, this happens all the time. One person keeps giving, adjusting, sacrificing. The other keeps taking, expecting, demanding. At first, questions, it seems noble. I'm doing this for love. But love without respect becomes slavery. And sooner or later, resentment starts to grow. If you don't value your time, others will waste it. Questions. If you don't value your energy, others will drain it. If you don't value your heart, others will break it. Not out of evil, but because you taught them that it's okay. Remember, questions. Kindness must have limits. Not because you're rude, but because you're real. Sometimes saying no is the most loving thing you can do. Because when you say no to others, questions, you are saying yes to yourself, to your peace, your priorities, your purpose. Look at nature. Even the sun sets every evening. It shines brightly all day, gives warmth, gives light, gives energy. Questions. But when evening comes, it withdraws. It says, "Now it's my time to rest." Is the sun selfish for setting? No, because it knows it can't shine again tomorrow if it doesn't recharge today. Questions. In the same way, you can't keep giving endlessly. You need time to rest, to recharge, to rebuild. Otherwise, you'll become bitter, tired, and drained. And a bitter person cannot spread love. Questions. You don't have to stop being kind. You just have to stop being available for everyone at all times. Be kind, but be clear. Help, but don't be used. Listen, but don't absorb everyone's pain. Questions. Love, but don't lose yourself in the process. When someone asks too much, it's okay to say, I care about you, but I can't help right now. When someone disrespects you, it's okay to say, questions. That's not acceptable. When someone expects you to keep giving without appreciation, it's okay to walk away silently with dignity. That's not being unkind. That's being wise. Questions. Even Krishna, when guiding Arjuna in the Mahabharata, didn't tell him to sit quietly in the name of peace. He told him to fight, not out of anger, but out of righteousness. Because sometimes, questions, standing firm is an act of compassion. So, my friends, stop confusing being kind with being weak. Questions. Kindness is not about saying yes to everything. It's about knowing when to say yes and when to say no. Kindness is not about avoiding conflict. It's about choosing peace over pleasing. Questions. Kindness is not about being silent. It's about speaking truth with love. When you stand up for yourself with respect, you don't become less kind. You become more authentic. Questions. Don't let your goodness become your cage. Let it become your strength. Be kind, but be kind with wisdom. Questions. Because the world doesn't need people who say yes to everything. It needs people who say yes to what's right. And when you do that, questions, your kindness won't just make people like you. It will make people respect you. And most importantly, it will make you respect yourself. Questions. My friends, let me begin with a truth that we often forget. People don't respect boundaries you never express. Many of us think that setting boundaries means pushing people away, being rude, questions, or being selfish. But in reality, boundaries are not walls that separate you from others. They are gates with locks. You decide who enters, when they enter, and how long they stay. You see, questions. A house without a gate looks open and welcoming, but it also invites strangers, noise, and even danger. In the same way, a life without boundaries may look kind and available. Questions. But it leaves you unprotected, exposed, and emotionally exhausted. Boundaries don't mean you don't care about others. They mean you also care about yourself. Questions. Let's understand this with something simple and relatable. Imagine you're the person in your friend group who everyone goes to when they have a problem. You listen patiently. You comfort. Questions. You give advice, and slowly you become their emotional dumping ground. Whenever something goes wrong in their life, they call you. Not because they care about you, but because they need you. Questions. You're available 24/7. You answer messages at midnight, cancel your plans, and bend over backwards to be there. But when you're the one struggling, suddenly no one picks up your call. Questions. You sit there wondering, why doesn't anyone care the same way I do? The truth is, they got used to your yes. You never set limits. You trained them unknowingly. Questions. That your time and peace are always up for grabs. That's not their fault alone. It's yours too, because you left your gate open. Boundaries aren't about cutting people off. Questions. They're about deciding who deserves access to your peace. Think about your mobile phone. You charge it every night, right? Because you know if you don't, it won't work the next day. Questions. But when it comes to your own emotional energy, you keep letting everyone drain your battery and you never recharge. And then you wonder why you feel burnt out, irritated, or numb. My friend, questions. If your phone deserves to recharge, so do you. You can't keep pouring from an empty cup. Boundaries help you refill that cup, not by isolating yourself, but by protecting your inner space. Questions. Some people misunderstand boundaries as arrogance. Oh, questions. You've changed. You've become distant, Pa. You think you're too good for us now. You've probably heard these lines when you finally said no to something unreasonable. But you see, questions. When you stop giving people what they were never entitled to, they call it attitude. Don't feel guilty for that. Questions. Because the people who truly value you will never be offended by your boundaries. They'll respect them. The ones who benefit from crossing them are the only ones who'll complain. Questions. Here's another story. Once a man owned a beautiful garden filled with flowers and trees. His neighbors loved walking through it, picking fruits and enjoying the shade. The man was kind. Questions. So he never said anything. Slowly, people started bringing their friends, then their dogs, then leaving trash behind. His garden began to die. One day, he built a small fence around it with a gate. Questions. People got angry. You've become selfish, they said. But soon, the garden started thriving again. The trees grew stronger, the flowers bloomed brighter. Questions. That's what boundaries do. They protect your growth. Without them, people will keep taking from you until you have nothing left to give. In relationships, this is crucial. Questions. You might think love means giving everything. Your time, your space, your energy, even your identity. But love without boundaries becomes dependency. And dependency suffocates both people. Questions. When you draw boundaries, you're not saying, I don't love you. You're saying, I love you, but I also love myself. You're saying, I want our connection to be healthy. Questions, not heavy. A person with boundaries doesn't reject others, they simply choose balance. For example, if you're working from home and a friend keeps dropping by unannounced. Questions, you might politely say, hey, I'd love to catch up, but I'm busy during the day. Let's meet in the evening. That's not rude. That's responsible. Questions. You're valuing both your work and your friendship. Boundaries teach others how to treat you. When you're always available, people assume your time has no value. Questions. When you let someone interrupt you constantly, they assume your focus doesn't matter. When you tolerate disrespect, they assume it's acceptable. But the moment you draw the line, respectfully, questions, calmly, consistently, you're sending a silent message. I value myself. And that's powerful. Because every time you say yes to something that drains you, questions, you are saying no to something that could fulfill you. Boundaries are a reflection of self-awareness. They show that you understand your limits and respect them. Without boundaries, questions, even the kindest person will turn bitter. Because giving without rest becomes resentment. Now, I know it's not easy. The first time you say no, your voice will tremble. Questions. The first time you refuse to do something out of guilt, your heart will ache. The first time you choose your peace over pleasing someone, you'll feel selfish. Questions. But that's just the discomfort of transformation. And soon you'll realize that the peace that follows is worth every bit of that discomfort. It's like cleaning your room. Messy at first, questions, peaceful later. Setting boundaries might create temporary chaos, but it leads to long-term clarity. So, start small. Learn to pause before saying yes. Ask yourself, do I really want to do this? Questions. Or am I afraid of disappointing someone? If it's fear, pause. If it's guilt, pause. If it's love and willingness, go ahead, you owe yourself that honesty. Remember, questions. A gate without a lock invites chaos, but a gate with a key offers peace. You're not here to please everyone. You're here to live with purpose and balance. Boundaries are not signs of rejection. Questions. They are signs of self-respect. And when you honor your own space, you teach the world to honor it too. Questions. My friends, there's a quiet prison that many of us live in, and most of the time we don't even realize it. It doesn't have iron bars or locked doors. It looks polite, it sounds gentle, questions, and it often gets praised as good behavior. But make no mistake, it is still a prison. It's called people-pleasing. Questions. People-pleasing is one of the most common forms of emotional slavery in our world today. It's the constant need to make everyone around you happy, even if it costs you your peace. Questions. It's when your worth depends on other people's approval. It's when your happiness is controlled by their opinion. You wake up every morning not asking, what do I want today? But rather questions. What will make others like me today? You shape your personality, your choices, even your dreams around what others expect. And the worst part, you think you're being kind. But the truth is, questions. You're not being kind, you're being afraid. Afraid of rejection, afraid of criticism, afraid of disappointing others, afraid of being alone. Questions. And that fear makes you say yes when your heart wants to scream no. It makes you agree when you disagree. It makes you smile when you're hurting. Questions. Let me tell you something. That kind of life is not peaceful, it's performative. You're not living freely, you're living for applause. Imagine this. You're at work. Questions. Your boss asks you to take on an extra project even though you're already overloaded. You know it's unfair. You know it will ruin your weekend. But instead of saying no, you smile and say, sure. Questions. I'll do it. Why? Because you don't want to be seen as lazy, uncooperative, or difficult. You want to be liked. You want to be appreciated. So, you sacrifice your rest, your health. Questions. Your peace for approval. That's not professionalism, my friend. That's emotional slavery. And the dangerous part is that it feels noble at first. You think you're being helpful, selfless. Questions. Generous, but slowly you start feeling invisible, used, resentful, and the irony, the more you try to please everyone, the less they actually value you. Because when you bend too easily, questions, people stop respecting your spine. Let's take another example, relationships. How many of us have stayed silent in a relationship just to keep the peace? Questions, you know something's bothering you. You feel disrespected, ignored, or unloved. But you don't speak up because you're scared they'll get angry or leave. So, you swallow your truth. Questions. Suppress your emotions and tell yourself, it's fine, at least they're happy. But here's the painful truth. You can't build genuine love on a foundation of fear. Questions. The more you try to avoid conflict, the more you kill connection. Because real love grows not from constant agreement, but from honest communication. People pleasing creates fake harmony. Questions. It looks peaceful on the outside, but it's turmoil inside. You're constantly anxious, constantly guessing what others think, constantly trying to fix things that were never your fault. Questions. You become addicted to approval. One compliment makes your day, one criticism ruins it. And that's the scariest part. Your sense of worth is no longer in your hands. It belongs to everyone else. Questions. That's why it's called emotional slavery, because someone else owns your peace. But here's the good news. You can walk out of that prison. Questions. You just have to realize the door was never locked. Freedom begins the moment you stop needing everyone to like you. You see, no matter how much you try, someone will always find fault. Questions. Even if you bend in every direction, someone will still say you're not flexible enough. If you stay quiet, they'll say you're weak. If you speak up, they'll say you're rude. If you help, questions, they'll take it for granted. If you don't, they'll call you selfish. So why live your life trying to meet impossible expectations? Questions. Even the most perfect souls in history, from Krishna to Christ, were misunderstood and criticized. So, who are we trying to impress? Questions. It's time to understand that your job in life is not to be liked, it's to be authentic. Start by being honest with yourself. The next time someone asks you for something, pause. Questions. Ask yourself, do I really want to do this? Or am I just afraid to say no? If your answer comes from fear, guilt, or the need to be accepted, pause again. Questions. Because anything done from fear will only lead to resentment later. You're not here to be everyone's savior. You're not responsible for everyone's happiness. Questions. You can love people deeply and still have limits. You can care for others and still care for yourself. Think of a tree. It gives shade, it gives fruit. Questions. But it doesn't bend for everyone who passes by. It stands tall, rooted in the ground. That's how your kindness should be. Grounded in strength, not in fear. Sometimes questions. People won't like your boundaries. They won't like your honesty. They'll call you selfish. But don't mistake guilt for guidance. Questions. Feeling guilty for doing what's right for you doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you've been conditioned to believe that love always means sacrifice. Questions. But real love doesn't demand your silence, it celebrates your truth. The moment you stop living for approval, your relationships transform. Questions. People may leave, but the ones who stay will love you for who you truly are. And that kind of love, my friends, is worth more than 1,000 fake smiles. So stop pleasing everyone. Questions. Please yourself enough to stand in your truth. Because every time you betray yourself to keep others comfortable, you teach your heart that it doesn't matter. And over time, questions. Your heart starts believing it. Don't let that happen. Choose courage over comfort. Choose honesty over approval. Choose authenticity over applause. You will upset people, and that's okay. Questions. Because peace doesn't come from being liked by everyone. Peace comes from being at peace with yourself. So walk out of that prison today. Tear down the walls of fear and guilt. Questions. Look in the mirror and remind yourself, you are not here to be everyone's favorite person. You are here to live your truth with dignity. When you stop people pleasing, questions, you don't become less kind, you become real. And the world needs real people more than it needs perfect ones. Questions, my friends, 2 little letters. Have the power to transform your entire life. Yet these are the 2 letters most people are afraid to say. Questions. We fear that if we say no, we will hurt someone, lose their love, or seem rude. So we keep saying, oh yes, again and again. Even when it drains us, disrespects us, questions, and destroys our peace. Let me tell you something that might sound strange, but is absolutely true. Every yes you say, without meaning it, is a lie to yourself and to others. Questions. Learning to say no gracefully is not about arrogance. It's about honesty, clarity, and self-respect. It's about knowing your limits and respecting your own time, energy, and priorities. Questions. Think of how many times you've said yes when your heart screamed no. A friend calls at midnight asking for a favor, and you say yes. A colleague dumps their unfinished work on you, and you say yes. Questions. A family member expects you to do something you don't have the energy for, and you still say yes. At first it feels easier to agree. You avoid the awkwardness. You avoid the guilt. But later, questions. When you're tired, frustrated, and emotionally drained, you realize your fake yes didn't serve anyone. Not them, not you. Because when you say yes out of guilt, you give without joy. Questions. And giving without joy leads to resentment. Imagine you're filling a bucket that has holes. No matter how much water you pour, it will keep leaking. Questions. That's what happens when you keep saying yes to everything. You keep pouring your energy into others. But since you never refill yourself, you feel empty. Questions. There's a story about a woman named Meera who always wanted to be helpful. She never refused anyone. Not her colleagues, not her friends, not even strangers. She was the one everyone relied on. Questions. But slowly she started feeling invisible. People didn't even ask if she was available, they just assumed she'd say yes. One day, she broke down. Not because someone asked for too much questions, but because she finally realized she had given everyone permission to take endlessly. Her problem wasn't that people took advantage of her. It was that she never said no. You see, questions, every time you say yes to something meaningless, you say no to something meaningful. You say no to your rest. your peace, your priorities, and your dreams. Questions. Learning to say no is not rejecting others, it's protecting yourself. And protection is not selfish, it's wise. When you say no with grace, you're not shutting people out. Questions. You're simply telling them, this doesn't align with me right now. It's not harsh, it's healthy. You can say no with kindness. You can say no with love. You can say no with a smile. Questions. It's not the no that hurts people, it's the tone and intent behind it. Let's take an everyday example. Suppose your boss asks you to stay late. Questions. Even though you've already worked extra hours all week, you can respond, I understand the urgency, but I've already given my best today. Questions. I'll handle it first thing tomorrow. That's not defiance, that's dignity. Or when a friend wants you to attend an event, but you need rest, you can say, thank you for inviting me. Questions. I'd love to join, but I really need to recharge today. Let's plan something soon. You see, no doesn't have to be cold. It can be warm, respectful, and firm at the same time. Questions. What's most important is that your no must come from clarity, not guilt. Because a clear no today saves you from a painful resentment tomorrow. Think about a doctor. Questions. When a patient demands unnecessary medication, the doctor says no, not to insult them, but to protect them. In the same way, sometimes saying no to others protects both them and you. Questions. Because by refusing what drains you, you're allowing yourself to show up fully in the moments that truly matter. Here's another truth. When you say yes to everything, your yes loses its meaning. Questions. If every door in your house is always open, even uninvited guests will walk in. But when you open it thoughtfully, only those who matter enter. Your time, energy, questions, and attention are your doors. Don't leave them wide open for everyone. And yes, people might not like your new boundaries at first. They might call you selfish, distant, or changed. But remember, questions. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. The ones who truly care will adjust. The ones who don't were only attached to your compliance, not your companionship. Questions. You will notice something magical when you start saying no. Your yes will become more powerful. It will carry sincerity, joy, and authenticity. People will trust your word more. Questions. Because they'll know your yes is real. Sometimes saying no is the highest form of respect for your time, your purpose, and even for the other person. Questions. Because false agreement creates fake relationships. You must understand this. Saying no doesn't close doors, it opens the right ones. It makes room for opportunities that align with your values. Questions. It gives you time to rest, reflect, and recharge. It allows you to focus on what truly matters. And most importantly, it restores your self-worth. Questions. Because every no you say to things that don't serve your soul is a high yes to your peace, your growth, and your purpose. Questions. Let me put this way, a tree doesn't apologize for not giving shade at midnight. The ocean doesn't say sorry for not being calm during a storm. In nature, boundaries exist effortlessly. Questions. The sun rises and sets at its own time. It doesn't ask for permission or feel guilty. You too are part of that nature. You are allowed to rest, to refuse, to recharge. So, questions. Stop fearing the word no. It's not rejection, it's direction. It's a sign that you know where you're going and what truly matters. And the day you learn to say no with grace, questions, something shifts inside you. You stop living in reaction and you start living with intention. You stop living to please and you start living with purpose. Remember this, questions. A no said with honesty is far kinder than a yes said with resentment. So, say no when you must, kindly, clearly, and confidently. Questions. Because when you stop betraying yourself for others' comfort, you don't become selfish. You become free. Questions. My friends, silence is powerful. Yes, it is. Silence can bring peace, reflection, and wisdom. But let me tell you this truth straight from the heart: silence is not always a virtue. Sometimes questions. Silence becomes a slow poison. Sometimes silence is not calmness, it's cowardice. And when you keep quiet in moments when you should speak up questions, you don't maintain peace, you protect the problem. We live in a world that often tells us, stay quiet, don't create drama, don't make things complicated. And so we swallow our pain, questions, suppress our truth, and pretend everything is fine. We wear a smile while our heart burns inside. But the question is, fine for whom? Questions. Because every time you silence yourself to keep someone else comfortable, you kill a little piece of your authenticity. Let's take a simple example. Imagine you're at work, questions, and your colleague constantly takes credit for your ideas. You know it's wrong, you know it's unfair, but you stay silent because you think, I don't want conflict. Questions. I don't want to look rude. Days pass and the same thing keeps happening. One day that same person gets promoted using your work. And you sit there frustrated. Questions. Asking yourself, why do people treat me this way? The answer is simple: because your silence taught them that they could. Silence is not strength when it hides truth. Questions. Silence becomes weakness when it protects injustice. There's a difference between silence that brings peace and silence that brings pain. True peace comes from clarity, honesty, questions, and courage, not from pretending nothing is wrong. We are taught since childhood to be nice, to avoid arguments, to adjust, to keep quiet. And yes, questions. There are times when silence is wise, when it prevents unnecessary fights, or when words would only add fuel to anger. But when silence is used to avoid responsibility or to tolerate mistreatment, questions, it becomes destructive. Imagine you have a friend who constantly mocks you in front of others. Every time they make a joke at your expense, everyone laughs. You smile too, pretending it doesn't hurt. Questions. You tell yourself, it's okay, they don't mean it. But inside, you feel small. You feel disrespected. You go home, replay those moments, and wish you had said something. Why didn't you? Questions. Because you didn't want to appear sensitive. Because you didn't want to lose the friendship. But here's the truth. A friendship that depends on your silence is not friendship. Questions. It's manipulation. When you speak up respectfully, you're not creating conflict. You're creating clarity. You're showing the other person where the line is. You're saying, questions. I value this relationship enough to be honest. There's a story about a bird that lived in a forest. Every day, a hunter came and set traps to catch birds. The bird saw it but stayed silent. Questions. Thinking, it's none of my business. One day, the hunter set a trap near her own nest. She got caught, and as she struggled, she whispered, questions. I should have warned others when I had the chance. The silence doesn't just harm you, it also allows wrong to grow unchecked. When good people stay silent, injustice becomes louder. Questions. In families, this happens too. Someone behaves disrespectfully. Maybe a parent is unfair, or a relative crosses a line. Everyone sees it, but no one says anything. Questions. We don't talk about such things, they say. Just keep quiet. But years of silence build resentment, pain, and distance. Questions. Relationships that could have healed stay broken because no one dared to speak the truth with love. Silence becomes a wall. And behind that wall, your voice, your feelings, questions, your dignity all start to fade. Speaking up doesn't mean shouting, it doesn't mean attacking. It means expressing your truth with grace. You can say, questions. I feel uncomfortable when this happens. You can say, I disagree, but I respect your opinion. You can say, that's not okay with me. These are powerful sentences. Calm, clear, questions, and courageous. You see, being spiritual, being kind, doesn't mean you have to tolerate everything. Even Krishna spoke when silence was dangerous. When Draupadi was humiliated in the Mahabharata, questions. Silence filled the courtroom. Powerful men, wise elders, all sat quietly. That silence became the seed of war. If just one person had spoken up for truth, history might have changed. Questions. So don't glorify silence when it becomes a shield for wrong. Speak not to attack, but to awaken. There's a saying, the truth may hurt for a moment, questions, but silence hurts forever. How true that is. A single honest conversation can save a relationship, a career, even your self-respect. If your friend crosses a line, tell them. Questions. If your partner disrespects your boundaries, tell them. If someone at work takes advantage of you, tell them. Because every time you speak your truth with kindness, questions, you teach people how to treat you. And you teach yourself that your voice matters. And yes, speaking up can be uncomfortable. You might shake. Your voice might tremble. You might lose some people. Questions. But remember, you're not losing them. You're just losing those who were comfortable with your silence, not your truth. When you finally learn to use your voice, questions, you realize that silence was never peace, it was pressure. And once you let that pressure go, your life feels lighter, freer, more honest. You were not given a voice just to whisper apologies. Questions. You were given a voice to express your truth with compassion. So stop mistaking silence for maturity. Sometimes silence is maturity, other times it's misery. Wisdom lies in knowing the difference. Questions. Speak not to prove that you're right, but to stand for what is right. Speak not to hurt, but to heal. Speak not from ego, but from love. Because in the end, people may forget what you said, questions, but they'll always remember how you made them feel, and how you made yourself feel by either speaking up or staying silent. So, my friend, if something is unjust, unkind, questions, or unfair, find your courage, take a breath and speak. Because silence may feel safe, but truth is freedom. And freedom always begins with a voice. Your voice.